Here I am, climbing up, feeling great, getting love. Here I go, risk it all, be worth it now, and that's for sure. Watch me as I rock it team.
All right, the long-awaited episode 39 of Fight Talk Down Under is brought to you by CMBT Nutrition. Go to cmbt.com.au for all your protein powder, protein bars, pre-workout, all that good stuff. Of course, CMBT are big supporters of Aussie MMA, so make sure you go to cmbt.com.au, use the promo code Justin to for 10% off at the checkout, and to give them and of course your boy Lockjaw some love. We're also brought to you by Nut Care. Now, they say that maintaining downstairs gives you an extra inch. Now, we could all use an extra inch. Let's be honest. So, but shaving is a real pain in the bum, really. So, guys, there is a solution. Bare Nuts hair removal cream is much easier and safer than shaving, and far less painful and time-consuming than waxing. So, go to nutcare.com.au. Use the promo code FightNews for 10% off at the checkout. That's nutcare.com.au, promo code FightNews. All right, welcome everyone. We're back. We've got a big episode this week. We're going to be touching on Eternal 75 this weekend, of course, and then we'll do a bit of a roundup of some of the sort of global promotions. They've got plenty of Aussies in action. Coming up. So before we do, of course, I'm Dan from Fight News Australia, and my co-host, of course, is the Eternal Featherweight Champion, Justin Lockjaw Van Heerden, who's taking on Rod Costa at Eternal 76 on June 10th. Lockjaw, how are you?
Yeah, good. Obviously, that was a nice little reminder, because obviously I haven't fought again this year so far. So, it's good to get. That's good. Let the people know. I'm still the champ. I'm the featherweight champ, fighting Rod Costa in June. He's got a belt, but it's like a bit smaller than mine, because he's obviously a smaller guy coming from a smaller weight. It's kind of like my belt. It's just that little bit smaller for the smaller bloke. But it'd be cool. We're gonna get into it in June. But doing good. Back to normal, I guess, when it comes to being in camp and everything like that. So in camp, doing podcasts. What more can we ask for?
Absolutely, that's it. So, obviously, there's no interim belts. There's no, there's no one else here. It's Lockjaw is still the champ, and we were sort of talking about this a little bit off air. But you've got some itchy knuckles at the moment. You've sort of had to wait a little bit longer than you might have hoped. You like to be active. So how's camp going, and how are you feeling?
Yeah, obviously, stuck into camp. Yeah, like you said, it's been a hot minute. Not how I wanted to start my year, but we're going to sort of keep it rolling from June. So I'm excited to get in there, excited to defend my belt, go back to Perth and, get some redemption over Rod. I'm excited for the fight too, because obviously, it's a new challenge, because he's obviously developed a lot since we first fought, and I think I have as well. So it's going to be cool. But being in camp's good, being back in camp alongside everyone, alongside all my teammates. We've got a lot happening. Everyone's sort of grinding camp together. Everyone's going through the motions. So it's a good energy in the gym, and everyone's killing it. So I'm excited, very excited.
Sure, I think we all are. It's going to be a banger. But of course, before we get to that one, we've got Eternal 75 this weekend on Saturday night. One of your old foes is headlining the card. It's it looks like a pretty solid one. So we'll probably start at the bottom here. In the lightweight division, there's a couple of guys making their pro debuts. Oliver Schmid, who's from City Kickboxing, I think, and of course Harrison Webb. Harry Webb is a guy who I've spoken about on this podcast before. I've seen him fight a few times on Demolition, and he looks a really good prospect. So what do you make of the opening fight of the card?
Yeah, obviously the lightweight division is so stacked, and now you got guys like this making their debut. It just continues to add to that. So it's obviously in that division at the moment. It's kind of like the reality of it being sink or swim is kind of more prominent than ever, because there's so much talent in there and there's so much happening. So it's kind of like you need to get in there, you need to get your wins, and you need to sort of string them together and you maintain that momentum. Kind of, you got to look at guys like Tom Nolan and what they've been able to do so far. If you're, I guess not getting those finishes, not getting those wins, not cementing yourself, it's going to be hard for you to sort of separate yourself from everyone else and get in there and fight for like that eternal title, which I think everyone's chasing. So, it's interesting to see, a couple of new prospects make their debut. And like you sort of touched on, both, Harry and Oliver are both kind of guys that are exciting prospects. You know, they're both young up and coming guys, and you know now they're going to be able to, I guess, utilize their skill sets completely, and then do it over 3 5-minute rounds. So it's going to be interesting to see how they both sort of adjust to that and manage that.
Absolutely. It looks like I saw on Oliver's Instagram. Looks like he's stepping up a weight class. I think he's a natural featherweight as well. So do you think that'll sort of play a factor?
It probably not as much as it might seem, because it is obviously just the next weight class up. So probably it just depends. It's not really, it would depend on the opponent, I guess, for that to be a factor. Like if he was fighting one of these sort of other sort of bigger lightweights, if he's getting in there with sort of like the Blake Donnelly or the Tom Nolan, or like people like Quinlan and that, like these bigger sort of lightweights, it's then obviously that's going to play a factor. But I think for this particular fight, I don't see it being too much of an issue, and he's probably going to feel a bit better, not cutting as much weight and just coming in there a bit more sort of fresh and hydrated, and not as sort of depleted, depending on how he's doing things and how that process is structured for him. Obviously, not sure if he's sort of utilizing a nutritionist or doing any of that sort of stuff, but I guess I don't see it being too much of a factor, but that's going to play out on the night, and especially when you sort of see these guys engage in the wrestling, and if they're exchanging on the cage, and if we're in the grappling, and when it gets that really sort of grindy part of the fight, will they be able to sort of, that's going to be the where we see if it's a factor or not.
Yeah, and you'd think at City Kickboxing he's in good hands. They're not going to sort of let him not do it properly. So yeah, you'd think it'd be fine there. And Harry has campaigned at featherweight before. I think it might have been a couple of years, but he did sort of hold both belts at under the Demolition banner there. So yeah, I don't know that he's a huge lightweight now. I'm not sure, but yeah, like you say, I guess we'll find out on fight night. Have you got a pick for us, by the way?
Look, it's a bit hard for me to pick this one because I haven't actually seen Oliver fight before. I've seen Harry fight a couple of times. It's an interesting one. I don't know. I think looking at what I've seen, the little bits I've seen here and there of sort of Oliver moving around in the gym and stuff like that, it looks like he's, obviously got some skills, and he trains at the second best MMA gym in the world. So, we got to give him some props there. He trains at CKB, but I'm interested to see how it goes. But obviously, I got to go off the evidence that's sort of in front of me. So I got to I'll go with Harry. I think he's going to be able to sort of get it done. From what I've seen, I've seen him sort of get in there and do some work on Demolition. So I think I'll lean a bit more towards Harry for this one.
Yeah, sounds good. And then, of course, following that, we've got Anthony Drillich, who's, I think was his last fight the knockout of Michael Barber. Is that right? Did I make that up?
Yeah.
Up against Jamie Renoff. So, yeah, how do you see this one?
Well, this is a good fight. This should be a good fight. Jamie's a dangerous dude. He's a tough guy too, durable. Drillich obviously showed he's got power in his hands. It's an interesting fight. Do I think that Drillich has sort of skills and abilities and things that, are exceptional? Not really. I think he's sort of good everywhere. It's not like he does something crazy in any one particular area where you go, holy shit, like, this is something you got to watch out for. He does sort of everything good. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. And obviously Jamie's, he's durable, he's dangerous. I think he packs some power too. So I think it's going to be one of those fights where it's just sort of a barn burner straight from the start. Fireworks we can expect. I feel like they're just going to get in there and trade, but ultimately I think Drillich is just going to have that little power advantage and be able to do sort of emulate similar success in this fight. Maybe get a TKO or a knockout sort of stoppage within the first or second round. I can kind of see that sort of playing out.
Yeah, awesome. All right, and then following that, probably another barn burner type fight, really. Kobe Porter versus Liam Steven. Probably looks like a fun matchup on paper. What do you reckon?
Yeah, this would be a good fight, and this is a good fight for both guys at this point, I think. I think Porter's kind of hit and miss so far with a few bits and pieces, and I think he's finding his feet a little bit, and especially in this division, like like we spoke about, it's such a tough division, and the matchups that you kind of are going to have are all going to be exceptionally difficult matchups. There's there's so many dangerous people in that division. So you kind of got to go from strength to strength, like we spoke about, and try and string together some momentum. And that's going to be even more prudent when he fights someone like Neem. Neem's a beast, and he's dangerous, and he's tough, and he's durable, and he's got the threats everywhere on the feet in the grappling. So it's not like for either guy, this isn't going to be a walk in the park type fight, but it's a perfect fight stylistically for both guys to bounce back, get some momentum, and start, reset their campaigns towards, a title fight or the next sort of thing, the next step in their respective careers, as we'd say.
Yeah, definitely. Have you got a pick for this one? I feel like it's another tough one to pick.
It's a hard one to pick. I feel like both guys can obviously, both guys can find a finish, and I feel like, I guess Adrian Pang and the team at Integrated are going to be, sort of pushing the wrestling and the grind from Porter's point of view, and trying to get him to sort of utilize that to sort of wear him out and put him on the bottom, put him in bad positions, not let him dictate the fight, dictate the pace, and dictate the positional sort of advantages that he would have otherwise. But at the same sense, I feel like Neem's going to have a chip on his shoulder and want to come out and put some damage on this guy and look to get a finish. I don't think he's planning on going the distance. So I'm probably leaning more towards Neem for a submission. I feel like he was going to pull out a submission probably at some point within the fight. I'd say so probably round 2. I feel like round 1's going to be a grind. There's going to be lots of scrambles. Both guys are going to be looking to implement their sort of game plans. But ultimately, I think in a scramble, I see Neem catching him, just snatching a sub and putting him away.
Yeah, sounds good. And then, of course, the co-main event. Lachlan Stitt is obviously a guy who, there's some, I guess there's high hopes for Lachlan, in Aussie MMA. He looks like a really, really talented prospect out of the Triple X gym there. So he's taking on Peter Templar. Now, we know that Lachlan's a guy who's had trouble finding fights. I think he's, 2-0 perhaps? And, it's one of those sort of high-risk, sort of low-reward fights at this point. We kind of talked about this in the past before. He's obviously a talented guy with not too many fights on his record, so it doesn't really do a whole lot for a lot of opponents to sort of to take him on paper anyway. But Peter Templar has stepped up to the plate. He's 1-2 himself, and he's 25, so he's a couple of years older than Lachlan, out of looks like Mackay MMA, just on his topology there. But it's good on him for taking the belt and taking the bout. And what do you think of his chances?
All right, so I'm gonna drop some knowledge on the folks right now about this fight. This fight's actually got a crazy storyline. Not surprised in any sense that Pete took the fight. So I actually trained with both these guys at Mackay MMA when I first started doing MMA. Pete and I were training a bit before Lachlan came, and Lachlan started training at Mackay MMA when he was like 15. So he was like a young kid. And, early on you could sort of tell this kid was sort of talented and just came in and would just shut his mouth and do the work. So it's actually crazy that it's gone full circle and these guys are about to get in there and fight each other as pros because, Lachlan was a little fish in a new pond, and there'd be many classes of sparring and grappling, and especially in the grappling, Peter's a very talented sort of jiu-jitsu specialist. Where he would have been put in the herd and ragdolling Lachlan around as a young kid, but now he's fighting a man. He's fighting a man and a super talented mixed martial artist. So it's kind of crazy how it's come full circle that from all those years ago back at Mackay MMA to now stepping in there and fighting each other on the co-main event at Eternal 75. But I do thoroughly believe, and there's no disrespect here, it's just looking at what the stylistic side of things of this matchup and looking what Lachlan's been able to do and my own sort of dealings with him. I think Pete's bitten off a bit more than he can chew for this one, and I feel like he's in real trouble from getting, I guess, stopped in a violent way by Lachlan. That kid's super dangerous, a lot of power. He's got good striking, good wrestling, good grappling, can mix it up real well. And, he's training with some of the top, I guess, mixed martial artists in the country as well. You see him doing constant work with the former champ, Caleb Rideout, who's such an unorthodox person to deal with. giving you all the problems to solve, whether it be on the feet and the wrestling and the grappling. Lachlan's doing a lot of work with Robert Whittaker, who's, you know, arguably one of the best, if not the second best middleweight on planet Earth. So I expect he's going to be well prepared. I expect he's going to have a chip on his shoulder because he has struggled to get fights and matchups. So it's kind of like every fight for him when he does get a fight is going to be like a do or die moment, because it is so they are so few and far between almost in a sense. But in saying that, you know, Pete's dangerous. He's got really, as I said, he's got really good grappling. He's one of those people that just took to jiu-jitsu so naturally, and it just kind of clicked. You know, it's something that just clicked for him. And in saying that, you know, I see that he's working on his striking. He's been training, you know, on all areas of mixed martial arts, and he's obviously. I saw an interview that he did where he said that he expects that he can come out there and get a finish by KO or TKO, and that's what he sort of wants. But me personally, looking at this fight, I don't think that's a good avenue for victory, and I feel like his way to win is to get the fight to the ground and utilize his superior jiu-jitsu as he did in his last performance, and, you know, kind of get the win that way. But ultimately, I just see a first-round stoppage going to Lachlan's way. I just feel like he's too dangerous, hits too hard. He's just good at finding that finish. He's just one of those people, like we spoke about. It might not even be that he packs a lot of power or that he's like super dangerous, you know, in any particular area, but he's like Charles Oliveira, like some of those people where he just finds the finish. If you give him an opening, he finds the finish. He's just good at finishing. He's good at putting people away. So I think we can expect more of that come this Saturday, and he's in the co-main event slot, so a lot of eyes on him, and kind of cement himself in a good spot moving forward and work towards possible redemption for his teammate Caleb when he potentially fights for a belt later in the year.
Yeah, it's true. He's a guy who just knows how to find the target, doesn't he? He just knows how to hit his opponents on the button. So what's Lachlan like on the ground? Like, is there a chance in the back of your mind that Peter Templer could take him down and tap him, or is Lachlan developed enough on the ground to be able to sort of compete in that realm as well?
Well, like I said, it's been many years since Pete was ragdolling him around, in those sort of scenarios. But looking at the training that he does, looking at the people that he's sharing the mats with, you know, guys like Robert Whittaker, guys like Aiden Maroki, like these people aren't slouches in the grappling and the wrestling department. So if he's getting in work with bodies like that and people of that caliber, you know, it's going to be a tough task to take this kid down, secure a top position, and actually submit him. So obviously it's not impossible, and, you know, Peter's jiu-jitsu is ridiculously good, but I just think, yeah, it's just going to be a tall order that's your one avenue to victory. I feel like Lachlan's got more weapons and more tools and more ways to win.
Yeah, right, there you go. And it's kind of interesting that there's a backstory there. I actually had no idea that was a thing, and it's kind of interesting that you got sort of two athletes that sort of start at different times. Like, obviously, like you say, Peter was ragdolling Lachlan in the early days, and then it's interesting that one can just sort of I don't know, kind of overtake them. You know, sort of Lachlan has developed into this, you know, sort of heavily hyped sort of prospect down here, and and Peter's kind of he's got an opportunity now to sort of steal that shine. You know, if he can sort of pull off the upset.
Yeah, and the bigger factor here is Peter was fighting at lightweight. This fight's at welterweight, so it's going to be interesting to see how he actually, he's a pretty big muscular guy, so it's going to be interesting to see how his body looks and how he is fighting at welterweight. That might be the missing link for him, or the thing that's been holding him back. He might come in there and just be an absolute monster at welterweight, and be super strong, super fast, super explosive, and just it might be the missing sort of puzzle piece that he's been looking for, and be the thing that strings a lot of momentum together for him. So I'm interested to see how that factors in, because he was someone that I would consider that would cut a fair bit of weight to get the lightweight. He's a big muscular guy. So it's going to be, and Lachlan's a bit the same, but I don't think he even cuts that much to get the welterweight. I think he's just, kind of like Caleb. He kind of just floats right around that weight. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all factors in. But yeah, I got to lock in that I think Lachlan's going to get a first round stoppage. That's my pick.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough too. So yeah, sounds like the weight mightn't be too much of a factor on fight night, but yeah, I guess we'll see this weekend. Now, of course, the main event is a former foe of yours, Diego Pereira's, taking on Jesse Medina. Obviously, this is a fight in your featherweight division, so you'll have a close eye on it. Jesse's obviously coming off a win over another one of your foes in Rodolfo Marquez, and Diego Pereira's coming off a loss to some mug, earlier in the year, or late last year, I think. So, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, obviously it's a fight in my weight class, so I'm gonna be watching it. I'm interested. It's a fight that I even said I had a sort of a chat with Jesse at one point, and I said that that's a fight that I'd like, as a fan, that's a fight that I'd like to see, would be him and Diego. It kind of intrigues me a bit. I'd be interested in that fight. And now it's happening. So yeah, obviously both guys are trying to sort of string together the momentum and get it, cement themselves towards the top of the division. Straight off the bat, like off the top, let's just get something clear. One win is not enough for you to fight for a belt. Jesse's coming off a win against Rodolfo. He's in a better position than Diego is, because I seen both guys sort of touch on this. Diego seems to think that if he goes out there and wins against Jesse, that puts him right back in line to fight for a belt. It doesn't. It doesn't. It really doesn't. You need to string some momentum together, get some wins, and then you can talk about doing that. For Jesse, it's a better position. He's coming off a win over Rodolfo, goes out there, puts on a show, finishes. Diego gets a win. It's a bit more, there's a bit more sort of, I guess, it helps his case a bit more. Puts him in a sort of a better spot. But I feel like both guys need to sort of continue to just keep that work and can keep that momentum and keep grinding it out. You got to make yourself undeniable, as we like to say here on the Fight Talk Down Under podcast. But I'm interested to see how this fight goes. Stylistically, it's very intriguing. Jesse's obviously very credentialed in the grappling side of things, but even the last few fights I've watched, especially even his fight with Abdallah, he was showing some improvements in his MMA game, in a sort of well-rounded MMA game. He was obviously someone like Abdallah. It's always going to be hard for you to showcase improvements in your striking and showcase the tools that you have in that area, because he is such a long and big, imposing figure, and he's got so many weapons. But I saw little glimpses in that fight, where Jesse was showing some massive improvements across the board in his sort of MMA game. Obviously, we know how dangerous Diego is. We know with Diego, it's not a weapon or skill set problem. This is, as we've sort of touched on before, and we spoke about even the lead up to my fight with him. Diego, it's just a mental thing. It's like which Diego is showing up? Is it a focused, renewed, rejuvenated Diego that's going to come in there and showcase how dangerous he is and put Jesse away, or is it going to be the guy that's just on autopilot, going through the motions and can't quite string together the momentum and then gets ends up getting beat just because he's just not on. That's sort of always a factor that goes into these fights for Diego, and I don't know. That's something that it's not, no coach, no training partner, no other person can change that for you or fix that for you or remedy that for you. That's something that's got to happen within yourself. So it'd be interesting to see, because if, like I always touch on, if the Diego that I've seen in the training room and in the cage shows up that I know he's capable of being, it's going to be a very quick night in the office for him, and he's going to put the hurt on Jesse and knock him the fuck out. So that's always an interesting factor for me on to what Diego is going to show up. But the way he's talking, the way he's sort of carrying himself into this fight, it seems like it's a similar Diego than that was going into the Michael Tobin fight. Seems like, and especially coming off a loss, he's got a chip on his shoulder, which I feel like is going to be a good factor in this fight. It seems like he's actually motivated and on for this one, which excites me, because then going into the fight, no matter what happens, there's not going to be any but this could have happened, or but what if I came in and I was on. I feel like he's on and he's ready, and I know Jesse is, and he's keen and he's excited, and he's looking at getting some momentum together, because he wants to move on to the next thing, the next phase of his career as well. So it's a crucial fight for both guys, but ultimately, it's going to come down to who shows up, and who walks into that cage, and who rises to the occasion for the main event slot on a big card. And I don't feel like Medina is someone who struggles with that. He's more experienced. He's had more fights. Diego's fought collectively probably a higher caliber of people, especially in recent years. He's been a bit more active. So I don't think that's going to play a factor too much. It's really just going to be who sets the pace and who dictates how this fight plays out in that sense. Because if you let Diego set the pace and I guess lull you into the momentum that he wants to fight at and the pace that he wants to fight at, it's going to be a long night for you. He's going to pick you apart. He's going to hurt you on the feet. He's going to kick your legs. He's going to throw up head kicks. He's going to throw knees. He's going to throw elbows. He's going to give you so much to deal with. It's just going to overload you and it just lull you into his pace. And then he's got the wrestling and the grappling as well to sort of defensively to stop what Jesse might want to do to him in those areas and in those scrambles. So yeah, for me, it's gonna be, can Jesse dictate the momentum? Can Jesse cause a shift in the pace of this fight? Be in his face, not let him get settled, not let him get in a rhythm. And if he can do that, he's going to have a pretty cruisy night in the office. And if he doesn't, if he just kind of tries to, I guess, respond to Diego instead of leading the dance, it's going to be an easy night for Diego, and he's probably going to put him away within 2 rounds.
Yeah, that's the thing. I guess is the grappling Jesse's sort of path to victory? If Jesse's going to take this out, we know he's a fantastic grappler. Do you think that's the way he does it? And I guess my follow up to that would be, is he good enough to be able to put Diego away? Because we know Diego's a black belt in his own right.
Certainly he has the tools to be able to submit Diego. But in saying that, I don't know. I don't see that being a thing. I feel like this fight's either going to end with a knockout, TKO, or a decision for either guy. I don't see either guy being able to submit one another. And especially looking at this, obviously Jesse's grappling is very good, but Rod Costa wasn't able to submit Diego. I couldn't submit Diego. And I think, across the board, especially in the grappling side of things, Rod and I are right up there. I feel like, especially in this division. So I don't know. I mean, he's a hard person to put away. He's a hard person to sort of deal with in that sense as well. He obviously, like you said, he knows what's happening in those areas. He knows how to be defensively aware. And I know the team at Southside and, people like Pasha and that are putting him through the paces. And, he's dealing with some high-level grapplers in that sense. So I don't know. It's going to be difficult for that to be the way the fight finishes, but it's possible. It's certainly possible, but I don't know. I just don't see that being the case for this fight for either guy. I think both guys, it's either going to be a knockout TKO type deal where they put each other away, or it's going to be a decision win to either guy. Yeah,
that makes sense. And if Jesse does win, I guess we're sort of doing a bit of MMA maths here, but if we go back to like you sort of touched on there before his fight with Rodolfo, he was obviously beaten by Abdullah, who's a guy who's on a win streak in your division as well. So does he sort of still sit behind Abdullah? It's a bit of MMA maths, but was he behind Abdullah still on the in the pecking order, or how do you see it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's no secret I'm fighting Rod Costa because his coach is one of the promoters. I should be fighting. I should have been fighting Abdullah. Look at, especially someone like me, constantly making the case of you got to be undeniable and you got to go out there and just get after it and separate yourself from everyone. Obviously, when the fight with Rod fell through in February, I was kind of expecting to fight in May, and then I was expecting to fight Abdullah in May. That's who I had my eye on, especially coming off that win over Philpott. I thought he was going to have the same energy he had when he fought Josh Kuhn, but he didn't. I guess if he got vocal and, I guess campaigned a bit more, I would have been fighting him in June, or in May or whatever the case was, but that didn't happen. So I don't know what's going on with that guy. He's gone quiet a bit. Obviously after that fight, Blake tried to talk to him in the cage and get him to sort of call his shot kind of, but he didn't have that same energy. And I don't know what he's doing. I see him posting a lot of videos on the old Insta, hitting pads and stuff like that. But I guess that's sort of what he does when he's not fighting. He's just hitting pads looking pretty for Instagram. So I don't know what he's up to, but in my mind, he's ahead of everyone else at the moment at featherweight. He's on a win streak. He's killing it. He's putting people away. He's obviously shown he's super dangerous. So, yeah, in my mind, it should have been me and him in May. But, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But I think, yeah, he's still ahead. And you need for me, it would make sense if they do the winner of this fight versus, versus another sort of person. It wouldn't make sense for Abdallah to fight the winner of this fight to fight for the belt. I think Abdallah should be next for the belt regardless. But maybe you could do the winner of this fight against someone like Alavi or someone, maybe if after I beat the brakes off Roddy C in June, you do Roddy C versus, if he wants to campaign a featherweight still, or after he defends his belt at bantamweight, I don't know. You do the winner of that fight, especially if Diego wins, because Diego's got a loss to Rod. So that could make sense, just from that point of view. Because then, especially because if Rod just fought me for the belt, you go and fight him, you beat him, and you string together, a couple of wins back to back, it looks a lot better. It looks a lot better when you do that. But I don't know. It's a weird place to be in. I just wish everyone else had my mentality of you just get in there, fight, separate yourself, and then call your shot, take your opportunity, and get after it.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it'd make matchmaking a whole lot easier in local MMA, wouldn't it? But again, I guess with Diego, obviously, you've just defeated him in your last outing. Do you think he's like, we know that the trilogy's there, right? You guys are 1-1 essentially. So is he one fight away? Assuming he's successful against Jesse. Would one fight be enough to do it for him against a decent opponent, if say it was Alavi or someone like that, or Rod?
What's the thing, like, going off this fight with Jesse, so say hypothetically he goes out there and smokes Jesse, and then obviously I fight Rod in June, beat Rod, and then if I wanted to make that fight happen, it'd happen. Like if I said, cool, let's do the trilogy in the Gold Coast, it's gonna sell a lot of tickets, and it makes sense, and there's a storyline there. 100% you could do that, but that's just not a thing. Like, I feel like he needs another win over another featherweight, and to sort of line that up and separate himself. And the same way that Rod's got a win over Diego, Diego's got a win over Abdallah. So Abdallah might want to, if he doesn't want to fight, say when I beat Rod in June, if he doesn't want to fight me for the belt again, I don't know, then you could do Diego and Abdallah, because he might want to get that one back, because Diego obviously finished him with a heel hook in that fight. So I don't know. It's a weird place to be in for any of those guys, because it's the regional scene's funny in that way, because you never know what's really going on, because like Alavi hasn't fought since I beat him. I haven't really seen anything that points towards him fighting anytime soon. I don't know. He's 7-1, so it's not like he's just some washed prospect. Like, he's only losses to me. Other than that, he ran through everybody and finished him. I'm pretty sure all his fights were finishes. So yeah, it's a weird spot to be in, because he hasn't fought since he's fought me. And then you got someone like Dimps, who's always posting about he's going to fight at featherweight when he fights in MMA again, and potentially was going to be fighting, but then I don't know, his hand wasn't healed, and then it was healed. Now he is trying. I don't know. So was
that Alavi he was booked to fight? Did I imagine that?
I believe it was. Yeah, I feel like they were meant to fight. Yeah. So I don't know. Like you said, the regional scene's so weird, isn't that right? Not everyone's got that same drive, that same mentality to want to be. Like, one thing that I'll give Diego is, regardless of the fights and that, the dude's he's always trying to be active. He is always fighting. Can't take that away from him. I think he's fought more on Eternal than anyone else. So he's constantly getting after it. And even if a fight doesn't go his way, we've seen him, string together a few other fights and book himself some other fights and get the ball rolling again. So, and it seems like Jesse's doing this, doing the same thing now. He's back, he's healed. I feel like he had a few injuries, and a couple of years there were a bit rough for him. So, it's cool to see that, there are still people that are trying to string it together and get after it and have that same mentality that they want to sort of separate themselves. But just go out and do it. Just go out and do it, and then it makes the whole process a lot easier. Because I'll fight anyone. I'll fight both of them the same night if Cam wants to do that. We can fight. I'll fight everyone. Like, I just like fighting. I just want to fight people and cement myself. And as much as it would have been cool to fight someone new like Abdallah. I'm excited to fight Rod again, and I'm excited to see who comes out of this fight this weekend, and potentially could be next, depending on a few other circumstances.
Yeah, definitely. I guess it's a pretty good spot to be in at featherweight at the moment. Like, there's a fair few sort of talented fighters kicking around. Obviously, you've faced a lot of them at this point. You know, you've been one of the more active guys out there. But there's still a lot of moving parts, and I guess we'll get some answers this weekend, and then of course next month.
That's it.
Sweet. All right. Eternal 75 in the books there. That's on what's that UFC Fight Pass this Saturday night, May 6th. Of course, also on May 6th, there's a huge event over in the US. Obviously, I'm obviously invested in this one Fight Night 10. And Demetrius Johnson versus Adriano Moraes 3. So obviously I didn't want to turn the podcast into a one championship sort of shouting box, because obviously I work for them now. But it is an important event, and we do have a couple of Aussies on the card. And it is, of course, live and free on the 7 Plus app. I've got to slip that in there because obviously I don't think we've done a podcast since, but obviously One Championship signed the broadcast deal with Network 7. So it's a really big one for this country, because like it's pretty much the first time ever that combat sports, and particularly mixed martial arts, have been on free-to-air TV, like live and free on Australian TV. So it is really important. Like it's I guess the philosophy of One Championship is that world-class martial arts should be free and accessible for everyone. They come from Asia, where a lot of people sort of can't really afford $80 or whatever it is now for a UFC pay-per-view. So it is quite significant, and the fights are really good quality. So of course there it is, live and free. I think the fights will probably kick off around 10 a.m. I think the first couple will be on YouTube, and then the rest will be on 7 Plus. So it'll be about sort of 10, 11 a.m. Thereabouts this Saturday. We have Reece McLaren is in action. He's I can see you smirking there, but he's taking on Kairat Akhmatov, who's a former one flyweight champion. He's ranked number 2. Reece is ranked number 4. They've fought before, which Kairat won by unanimous decision back in 2019. Both guys are on standby in case one of Demetrius or Adriano fall out of the main event, so that's significant. But I think it's likely that the winner will face the winner of Demetrius and Adriano. Of course, depending on what Demetrius' status is, he's sort of teased retirement. But depending on all of that, looks like the winner of Kairat Akhmatov versus Reece McLaren might get the next title shot. So yeah, what do you reckon?
Huge fight, especially because they fought before. So. And from memory, I know, Reece lost a decision in that one, but from memory, I think he still had his moments. I don't think it was like an outright sort of like he got outclassed or anything. I feel like it was just, there was just a lot of momentum shifts, and it was sort of, I think briefly he even had all mates back, and, Reece's grappling's pretty good. So, it'll be interesting to see how this fight goes. Both guys are ranked in the top 5, so it's going to be, like you said, it's like a number 1 contender fight. And if I'm either one of those guys, I'm going to come out and look to stop my opponent, get a big win, and then campaign and call for the winner of, Moraes and Demetrius. And especially if Demetrius wins, I want to convince that dude to stay for one more fight, because obviously you're getting to fight for a world title, but you're getting to fight a world title against arguably the GOAT, or one of the GOATs in MMA. So I'd want to do that. I'd want to say, hey, fuck you, retire after the next fight. Let's get in there and fight for a belt. But I think Reece can get it done. I feel like he's grown a bit since their first outing. He's super dangerous, obviously, and now he's striking, and that's improving tremendously, because he is working with John Wayne Parr, who's, I don't know if he knows a little bit about striking. The guy punch. Guy's been around the block a little bit. So it's not like he's training with some guy who fought in pubs and is just holding mitts for him. He's training with one of the best strikers to ever come out of the country. And obviously, his grappling is ridiculous. And you got someone like Daniel Almeida heading over. He's the head of the MMA sort of program there at Boonshu. Super experienced, been around the block, very credentialed in his own right, fought in MMA as well. So I feel like, this is going to be a completely different fight. And I feel like, as much as it burns my soul to say this, I feel like Reece is going to go out there and get the job done.
Yeah, I guess we hope so. I mean, Kairat's a really sort of physical sort of fighter, isn't he? He's sort of got a bit of a wrestling background, and
Yeah.
so I guess that's always the danger, isn't it? Those sorts of guys are pretty difficult to sort of hold off. But I think, yeah, like you say, Reece had his moments in the first fight, and now with sort of the striking improvements, which have definitely shown in his last couple of fights. He really pieced up Winston Hamosh in his last fight there with some real sort of piston right hands, and as John Wayne Parra said in some interviews that he's just sort of believing more and more in that sort of in his striking skills now. So be interesting to see, if he can sort of put that on show against Kairat this weekend in a huge fight.
Yeah, and it's more so like this is another fight where you can't just go out there and win a decision. Like you got to try and put the guy away. You got to try and make it, cement it. You got to put on a show, like you said.
Dare we say, make it undeniable?
Yes, but also, fucking like you said, it's broadcast on the 7+ app. It's people are going to be watching. There's going to be eyes from all over the globe watching this fight, especially here in Australia, back in your home country. So go out there and put on a show and stop this dude.
That's an interesting wrinkle as well, isn't it? Because it is one's first event in the US, which is obviously a landmark sort of event for the promotion. Obviously, all the events have taken place throughout Asia, so it's obviously a big show of intent. There's going to be a lot of intrigue around it. So there's going to be extra eyeballs globally, but then like you say, here in Australia, it's one of the, I think it might be the maybe the second or third sort of fight night that's broadcast live on 7+, so there is that extra exposure here in Australia, because a lot of the Australian fighters like Martin Nguyen, Reece McLaren, they've been around forever in one championship. They're huge stars in Asia, but no one in Australia's ever heard of them. So it's a good opportunity to make a name for yourself, put on a show while the country's watching.
Exactly, and that's what he's going to do, hopefully.
Hopefully. Also, we've got Diandra Martin in action. She's taking on Jackie Buntan in a strawweight Muay Thai bout. Again, you could make a case that the winner of this fight might get the next title shot as well against Smilla Sundell. Both of them have lost to Smilla Sundell. Pretty, relatively one-sided contest. Like Smilla's obviously just a ridiculous talent. What is she? I think she's 18 years old now, and she's just been bashing everyone in that strawweight division. But both Jackie and Diandra have bounced back and beat Amber Kitchen in their last fights. But before that, Jackie had pretty much cleaned out the division. It's still a growing division, the strawweight Muay Thai division, and Jackie had reeled off 3 straight wins before she fought Smilla. So realistically, she's at the front of the queue, and if Diandra can pull it off, then she steals that shine, and she probably gets the rematch with Smilla. Yeah,
so it's another sort of do or die type position to be in, where you got to go out there and get a win and get a convincing win and put on a show, and then get yourself a title shot against an absolute monster. But I don't know, it's weird because like the strawweight kind of division, when you see it like that, it's deceptive, because obviously they're fast, they're explosive, their techniques like ridiculously clean, but there's also like that hidden layer of them girls pack power, so at any moment it could be lights out. So the dangers that you sort of have presented to you, it's kind of like they're always present throughout the entire duration of however long the contest is going to go. So I'm interested to see, and it's always entertaining. I think people don't really appreciate, people will watch MMA fights and they'll be like, big fans of the striking exchanges, and that's what they want to sort of see. But I guess a lot of them people don't actually, get to watch some of these high level striking contests that you see in Muay Thai and kickboxing fights. So I feel like people need to tune in, because it's going to be something to watch.
Exactly, and the one Muay Thai bouts do take place in 4-ounce gloves as well, so that's an extra layer. So that's also probably a contributing factor to some of the sort of stoppages that we do see in some of the lighter weight classes, and in the women's weight classes as well. So it's definitely, and it's an interesting stylistic matchup as well. On top of that, like Jackie's a really sort of short, sort of I guess nuggety sort of build, and she's really fast. She moves well. She has good hands. She has a good inside game and everything. Whereas Diandra is quite tall. She's rangy. She's got a good kicking game. She can punch as well. So it's going to be interesting if Diandra can sort of maintain her range, whether Jackie can sort of close the distance and get in on Diandra. It's definitely an interesting sort of stylistic matchup in terms of the the build and the stature of the fighters.
Yeah, and I love that they do it in the 4-ounce gloves. That shit's wild. Like the fact that these high level strikers are fighting each other with 4-ounce gloves, and there's no like wrestling that you have to worry about or grappling that's gonna throw you off being able to sort of keep your momentum. Obviously, there's trips and stuff like that in Muay Thai still, but yeah, I feel like it's cool to sort of watch these high level strikers get after it, and then that they're only wearing 4-ounce gloves, which blows me away, because like imagine getting in there and fighting someone like Rodtang with 4-ounce gloves on in a stand-up fight. I've done some stupid shit in my life, but that's not something I want to sign up for.
yeah, it's not really on my bucket list either. That's that'd be a tough one for sure. But obviously Edgar Tabarez is going to be doing that. He's going to be strapping on some 4-ounce gloves and punching on with Rodtang in his one debut as well. So good luck to that guy.
Yeah, no. If there's anyone in any sort of martial art that I just wouldn't want to fight, it's probably that dude in a Muay Thai fight or kickboxing fight. If I can't wrestle him, I don't want to be there. I don't want to know him.
Yep, and fair enough too. And of course, the main event for this one, Demetrius Johnson, like I mentioned, he's sort of teasing that this might be his last fight, but it's a trilogy fight against Adriano Moraes. Now we know Moraes won the first fight with a flying knee sort of knockout. Demetrius returned the favour with a flying knee of his own in the second fight after a competitive 3 rounds before that. So, yeah, have you got a pick for the main event?
Mighty Mouse, buy whatever he wants. I feel like he's got his number now. He adjusted from that first fight. I think it was a big eye opener being able to, throwing the knees on the grounded opponent. And I feel like positionally he just put himself in danger and didn't respect the fact that you could get blasted with a knee from there and, got caught. But the second fight was such a back and forth sort of talent, exciting scrap. Like you said, those first couple of rounds was sort of, both guys were having their moments. It was dangerous. Both guys have the ability to just put each other away. But I just think Mighty Mouse's levels better as with his fight IQ as well. And I feel like he's just going to find that opening. I don't see this fight going past the third.
Yeah, he's got that little sort of sprinkling of greatness, doesn't he, Demetrius Johnson? There's just that little bit of magic about him, and if he is sort of even thinking that this might be the last one, then you would think he's got something up his sleeve, and he's going to bring as good of a version of himself as he can at 36 years old, and you'd think there's just one last little bit of magic left, Yeah,
especially if this is really like going to be his last fight, like if he's made his mind up and gone, I'm done. Guaranteed he's going to come out there and they're going to have cooked up something, and he's going to do something to amaze us and wow us. He's going to give us another incredibly viral moment of just pure greatness. Like, I don't think people understand how hard it is to do what he did in the last fight, like to clip someone, have them hurt, follow them at range just enough, and to time it just perfectly to when you throw the knee, when Moraes hits the cage, and then sleep him in that sense. Like, that's so hard to do. Like, you can't, even though Omate was obviously compromised from the shot that he took beforehand, the timing on that, the ability to do that, to find that opening, to find that shot and put someone away, that's fucking high level shit. And, we always talk about appreciating fighters while they're around. I honestly hope that people have appreciated and enjoyed watching this dude fight, because if he is really done, that's crazy, because he's one of the best to ever walk inside a cage and scrap. And he is someone that decided to fuck around and fight Rodtang with 4-ounce gloves on briefly.
Yeah, he did. He did make that decision, and he got away with it too. He got out of the first round, and then of course he took Rodtang down and did what he wanted with him. So yeah, obviously we get one more, potentially just one more opportunity to appreciate Mighty Mouse live and free on 7+. I've of course got to keep plugging it. There's no subscription fees. There's nothing. It's free. There's no strings. Download the 7+ app on your phone or on your TV if you haven't already. and you can just click login with Facebook or Gmail or whatever, and you don't even have to sort of go through the process of creating an account. That's it. There's no strings. Free combat sports, free punch-ons, Saturday morning through to Saturday afternoon on 7+, one fight night 10. All right, of course, we've got to get into, we're going to go through some UFC stuff. But before we do, I just wanted to touch on some of the other Aussies. We've got a bit of a lag here because we have missed a few weeks. But I saw, obviously, Shane Mitchell made his PFL debut recently. He lost by decision. Did you watch that one?
Yeah, I got to watch that one. It was a very, very tough fight. Both guys had to sort of dig deep and grit in there, but it was it was a level test fight, I guess, for Shane, because he's obviously had some success regionally, and this was his first sort of foray into international competition, and it was an eye-opening sort of fight for him to be able to go, okay, this is where it's at now, and now this is the level I've got to be at. So I feel like it's just going to be a boost for him regardless.
So where is he at? He didn't really look out of place in that fight, did he? So I don't know. It's tough to come back from a loss in those PFL seasons, but whereabouts is he at in terms of the global stage?
No, I feel like he's right where he should be, and he's obviously can compete there. It's probably, and we got there's a few other factors that probably come in. The first time traveling overseas to fight, how's that adjusted to your weight cut? All those contributing factors is things that are going to play a part in these fights. And he definitely didn't look out of place. Like, he's a dangerous dude. He's got some good skills and stuff like that. So I feel like, obviously, like you said, it's hard once you've already taken a loss in the season to sort of get yourself. You kind of need to get a bunch of first round finishes in the rest of your fights, really, to kind of get yourself back in to fight in that final for that $1 million. But he certainly can, and I feel like he's going to be levels better when he steps in there again.
Awesome. And of course, one of your sort of training partners here and there, Arlene Blenko, was in action a week or two ago against Sarah McMahon in Bellator. She's gone down by unanimous decision. So what did you make of that one?
It's a tough fight. Sarah McMahon sort of just made it gritty, grinded it out. The wrestling and the grappling and just the control was obviously a big factor in that fight. Just her ability. She's obviously she's stacked. She must be incredibly strong, because it just looked like when she got a hold of positions, she was just able to sort of cement herself down and make it incredibly difficult for Arlene to sort of move around and get back to positions where she could have her own success. And obviously on the feet, we know how dangerous Arlene is and how hard she actually can hit. I can tell you that firsthand. She hits like a truck. It's not fun. It was just one of those things, man. It was just McMahon was able to utilize her wrestling, her grappling, and just control and just grind it out, made it gritty. It was just a grind, just an old school grind for the win.
There you go. So where to from here, I guess, for Arlene? I think she's 40 years old now. She's only one fight removed from her second loss to Cyborg. So, I mean, she's obviously still a contender over there, but I don't know, where does she go from here?
Well, like she said herself, even after the fight with Cyborg, she's she's going to be the person that these up and coming people have to go through she's going to be the person that they have to make it through if they want to, fight someone like Cyborg for the belt. So I feel like she's just going to pick herself up, dust herself off, get back in there and fight another one of these prospects and send them back down in the lineup.
Absolutely, and of course in the UFC there's been a bit of movement on the Aussie front. Obviously, was it International Fight Week's looking like there's got a bit of an Aussie flavour there. But before that, Junior Tafa made his UFC debut again a couple of weeks ago against Muhammad Usman. Probably wasn't really the spectacle that we were hoping for, the fight itself, but with Usman taking a unanimous decision in what was a pretty sort of low volume sort of contest in the end. So, what did you make of Junior's UFC debut?
Dude threw less than 20 significant strikes in the whole fight, and he had 12 minutes of control time. Did you win the fight? I don't think so. Did you even fight? I don't think so. I don't know. Obviously, I'm annoyed at the fact that the fight went the way it did, and I feel like I'm pretty gutted for Junior that he couldn't get the win in his debut, but he did have some moments, and he showed that even at heavyweight, he's a dangerous force on the feet, and his striking is hard to deal with, and he's obviously got power. But yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just, but that's it. That's the game. If you're going to fight these guys that have the ability to wrestle and control you, or just control you, and you can't get to your feet. Like, I know people from like the casual point of view and that will look at that and get frustrated and be like, oh, tell the ref to stand them up and stuff. And even people sometimes that are, invested in the sport or even fight will look at that sometimes and be like, fuck, just stand them up. But like, if you can't get to your feet, you can't get to your feet. And if you can't get to your feet, you can't win the fight. So that's going to be something for Junior to sort of keep tabs on, not being stuck on the bottom, not being controlled. But as far as with Usman, I think, he's got, I don't know, I can't see Dana White being too stoked about his performance. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does next in his next outing. But obviously I feel bad for that guy too, because the bar's obviously been set so high by his brother. So I feel like the standard that he's being measured to is incredibly higher than most other prospects in the UFC. So yeah, there's that factor as well. But I think we're expecting every time he fights, you expect that he's going to come out there and be like Kamaru, and that's just not going to be the case because he's so early into his career. But yeah, he's obviously like his brother. He's a genetic freak and obviously an explosive athlete. So I feel like if he strings it together and gets himself back on track, he could do, he could still be an exciting prospect for the sport of MMA. But I want to see Junior drop down to light heavyweight and fight at the weight class he should be in, and a lot less wrestlers and grapplers in that weight class too. So we're going to see some high level striking. We might get to see a Junior tougher fight the likes of Pereira, Prohaska, Jan Blachowicz, these other guys that like to stand and bang, and I feel like he can put it on anyone. Johnny Walker, he can put on any of these dudes, He could knock out any of these dudes. So it'd be cool. It'd be cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. That was going to be my next question, actually, because it definitely felt like the size was a bit of a factor in the fight. I wonder whether it was like a kind of a short notice call. Like what do you think the motivation is for Junior taking fights at heavyweight? Is it just taking the opportunity that comes to you from the UFC, or
I feel like
why is he fighting up a weight class?
He's one of those guys that just likes to be active too. So like when in the lead up to this UFC contract being signed, he was fought like. I think he fought like 4 times and he fought like close together. So I feel like, maybe that too. It's just like, and obviously his debut was meant to be earlier. He got injured, missed out on the Perth card. So maybe just, coming off an injury, just didn't want to have to cut weight as an extra thing too. And especially traveling overseas, probably that's one less thing to worry about, right? If you can eliminate one less hurdle, why wouldn't you? At the end of the day, I just think he likes to eat. So
yeah, I can feel that.
I saw that, saw in the lead up, in the videos that him and his brother were putting up on their socials of all the restaurants and stuff they're at and the food they were eating. If you don't have to cut weight, hey, why not? If I could sit there and eat all the stuff I want and not have to worry about doing that, I'll take that. I'll take that. But unfortunately, to do that, you got to move up a couple of weight classes, and then you are going to be fighting people who are cutting down just to be in that weight class. So, yeah. But, at heavyweight, it's such a weird thing, right? Because you could be 225 pounds at heavyweight fighting someone who's 265. So, yeah, it's just and obviously Usman's on the bigger side of that scale. He's a big guy. He's a massive human being. So, yeah, it's always going to play a factor. And especially if someone's just good at securing position, now you factor in the just sheer weight advantage that they have. It's going to be hard to deal with.
Absolutely, and yeah, so it proved in the end. So, of course, like I mentioned, International Fight Week in July. We've got a couple of Aussies announced for there. So obviously Robert Whittaker's taking on Dracus du Plessis. So are you a little bit torn on this one? Like who do you root for when you've got a South African and an Aussie fighter in the fight?
Yeah, this is a weird one because I like both guys. Obviously, I don't know, but I kind of agree with Chael Sonnen that this fight shouldn't even have been made. It should have just been, you should have capitalized on the storyline that developed between Dricus and Adesanya and made that fight. Or even, and then with Whittaker, you kind of, I don't know. He said he's not going to accept any fight offers for someone like Costa or Hamza because he has before and it's just fallen through and he doesn't want to just go through that. So you can kind of see that being the thing. But yeah, it's a weird fight because I like both guys. I want both, I want to see both guys do well. But it's just a weird spot to be in, right? Because it's one of those fights where they're both guys that are likable that you want to see do well and win. But at the same time, neither guy's got this skill set or the tool set, it seems, to beat someone like Izzy. It's just, I don't know. He's obviously shown he's got Rob's number. And as much as that second fight was vastly better for Rob than it was in the first fight, because I've seen the first fight he got stopped, Izzy still beat him. Like he still was just better. So I don't know. Does he have the ability to do what Izzy did with like Pereira and get that one win out of 4 fights? Maybe. But I don't know. This game's weird like that, right? Some people just have people's number, and then for whatever reason they just can't figure it out. Like you look at Leon and Usman now. It just seems like Leon's just, I don't know. He just has it figured out. He just has him figured out and has the answers. So it's a weird spot for both guys to be in. Do I see Whittaker getting a title shot against Izzy if he wins? No, I don't see them taking a fight. Like, what reason do they have to take the fight? He got knocked out in the first fight. He got beat in the second fight. It's not like, you're in a Max Holloway type situation. It's a weird spot to be in. And I feel regardless of if Whittaker wins, I wouldn't be surprised if they push a fight with Izzy and someone different, or if Izzy decides to go and pursue something else in that time, or just kind of wait for things to play out. But then, yeah, obviously if Dricus wins, we're going to see him and Adesanya fight each other. It'll be the next logical fight to make because it's the only person that he hasn't fought. I think he's the only person in the top 10 that Adesanya hasn't fought from memory. So, yeah, it's just a weird fight. I don't want to see either guy lose because he's so likable, especially Whittaker. He's like super likable, super nice dude, and just as they say, like just a super relatable guy, and he's just a funny dude. So you want to see him continue to do well, and obviously you got to back the Aussies, but then obviously, like you said, I want to back the South African that's getting in there and fighting as well. So I don't know, it's a weird spot to be in. I just hope it's an entertaining fight, and I'm interested to see how much better Dricus looks in there now that he's gotten surgery on his nose, and they're telling us that he can actually breathe properly and stuff like that. We'll actually see if that's a thing that was really as much of a hurdle as it was, or if, he might come out there and fucking be Superman and all of a sudden and actually, be vastly better and go out there and fucking smoke Whittaker, and then we're all going to be sitting here going, oh shit, maybe that was a really big factor that was sort of holding him back. Or Rob's just going to do what Rob does and send Dricus to the back of the line like he has done to Gastelum and Vittori and Cannonier and all these top-level middleweights. Like, I don't know, something about Whittaker. He just seems to be levels better than everyone except for Adesanya.
Yeah, he's just like a clear sort of number 2 in that middleweight division, isn't there? There's there's kind of like Adesanya, Daylight, Whittaker, Daylight again, and then there's the chasing pack. But is the UFC hoping for Dracus to win this one? Do you reckon they want to capitalise?
100%. That's a big money sort of fight that you can build, especially with the back and forth that they've had already. Yeah, I imagine Dana White and the UFC are sitting there hoping that Dricus wins, but like he has done already, I just see it. Whittaker can certainly just spoil the party and go, fuck it, and just go out there and beat the shit out of this dude, and then we're kind of sitting there going, all right, what's next?
And they've like the UFC has long been like teasing a fight in Africa. Would that be the one? Would Adesanya versus Dracus du Plessis be the one? Do you reckon that's what they're hoping for?
100%. You do. Yeah, that's if that fight like if he goes out there and beats Whittaker, that's the fight that you do in Africa. Or I think UFC. I think I saw Dana White saying that they dropped the ball a bit with their plans to go to Africa or I don't know, something's weird, but you got to have that fight in the Southern Hemisphere somehow. So they're teasing an Australia card in September or something towards the end of the year or later in the year or whatever. That's your main event. You do that, especially I think they're coming to Sydney. It's what everyone's sort of teasing. So that's a cracking main event to have down here because you got two guys based in the Southern Hemisphere fighting each other. You know, Kiwi, I don't know, someone who's based in New Zealand versus a guy based in South Africa. There's how many years of rivalry there across different codes of sport. So it's the same with even now with this fight with Whitaker, like it's just cool to. There's something special about when you see any Australians versus any New Zealanders, or any New Zealanders versus any South Africans, like just back and forth. Like there's something that you just want to keep your eye on. And the bragging rights, it's more about the bragging rights, right? Like at least across with rugby league, rugby union, stuff like that, especially with rugby union, when you win the World Cup, that's 4 years that those people have to wait to try and get redemption, So I feel like across all codes of sport, there's that extra bit of rivalry when it comes to, our three nations. But obviously, if it works out that way and you got a fight between Dricus and Adesanya, man, that is going to be one hell of a build up to a fight, and there's going to be some interesting things said. I can see it now.
Absolutely, yeah. That'd be a fun little storyline. Obviously, we're like from a purely Aussie's perspective, I'm rooting for Robert Whitaker. I'd love for him to get the belt back eventually. But look, if Dracus gets up, there's there's some fun times ahead as well.
I wonder.
Also on that card, sorry, go.
I just wonder if Dricus wins, like, is the better move for you to then push to try and get the fight in Africa? Just go, hey, I'm not going to fight in September. Let's get something happening. And then you do like an early, like end of 2023, start of 2024 card in Africa. Like, is that the move? That's the only thing that's sort of playing on my mind. Is that the move then?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, Dracus might get on the mic if he wins and call for something like that. It's something that they've teased for a long time. So you'd think that there would be some sort of groundwork that's been done. They'd have some idea of where they would hold it. So that I don't know what these new hurdles are that have come along, but you would think that there would be some sort of building blocks in place for them to be able to pull it off by the end of this year or early next year. But who knows? Mm-hmm. Also on the card is just been announced is Jack Della Maddalena, obviously taking on Sean Brady. That's a really interesting test for Jack. What do you make of that one? Yeah, obviously Brady's grappling and wrestling is very, very good, and he seems like a freakishly strong type dude. So, Bilal was able to deal with that and, hand him his sort of first loss. So it's going to be interesting to see how much he's improved and how much better he's going to get from that experience, because obviously, that would have been an eye-opening experience for him. But yeah, I just think Della's going to knock him out. I just don't see him having any sort of struggles, really. I feel like he's going to deal with the problems from the wrestling and grappling that Brady presents, and he's just going to end up stopping him. He's just going to knock him out like he has done everyone else. And I don't see it happening in the first. I see it happening probably around 2. But yeah, I feel like Della's just going to knock him out. He just scrambles incredibly well, doesn't he, Della? And he just seems to be levels above on the feet at the moment. So, yeah, but it's an interesting test. Like if Brady can sort of get him down and keep him down, then it'd be interesting to see if he can sort of triumph over that sort of adversity. Yeah, exactly. And we pick fights here based on knowledge and what we're presented with facts. Like if you looked at this fight, you'd say tattooed guy beats neighbor's kid guy that looks like the nicest dude in the world. But that is not the case. Jack Della's a monster, and he's vastly better across the board, I'm told, even in the wrestling and in the grappling. So we are going to be finding out in July. Absolutely. And also, just one more before we wrap up. Shannon Ross has been announced for that card as well. Obviously, his debut didn't quite go to plan earlier this year. He's taking on Jesus Aguilar, who's 13-7. I actually don't know that I've seen him fight, but what do you make of that one? Yeah, it's going to be a good opportunity for Shannon to sort of bounce back, get that first win in the UFC, and start progressing forward with his sort of UFC tenure, as they'd say. But still a dangerous fight. The flyweight division is interesting because everyone's fast, everyone's explosive, everyone's technically sound across all areas. I don't think you watch any of these flyweight fights and go, oh, this person's lacking in any area. You just see crazy, high pace, high speed
scrambles across the board and exchanges on the feet. So I'm excited. I think it's a good fight for Shannon. It's a winnable fight for Shannon. Not that his last fight wasn't winnable. Obviously, every fight you like to think is winnable, but this fight stylistically is probably a better matchup for him than his last fight, and I feel like he can finally get that first UFC win and then move forward in his own sort of progression.
Absolutely, and if you love high pace, high speed exchanges, then make sure you tune in for episode 40 of Fight Talk Down Under. Of course, we're going to be trying to get back on track here, doing weekly episodes. So yes, so next week we'll of course be recapping all the action from Eternal. There'll be plenty to unpack there. And we'll see what else happens. We might answer some fan questions and that sort of thing. So, in the meantime, let us know if you have a question. Details are below. Dan, me, and MMA on Twitter, or Lockjaw MMA on Instagram. Of course, we have a podcast Instagram at Fight Talk Down Under. Like and subscribe as well if you haven't already. YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Fight News Australia, and iHeartRadio. Lockjaw, what do you want to take us off with?
Look, firstly, I'll just say, we're going to be back on track. It's been all Dan's fault. Since he's started with one championship, he's just gotten too good for me. He's like, mate, my schedule's too busy. I don't have time for your little podcast. I'm out here in the big leagues. He's gone all Hollywood on me, so I apologize.
Yeah, the invoice is in the mail for this episode, by the way. So make sure you pay that promptly.
Yeah, we're going to get back on track. I've convinced him that he can't forget about Fight Talk Down Under. But other than that, we're just going to be watching some fights, breaking down some fights. I'm going to be fighting. It's all about fighting. So I'm excited. And I'm excited to watch Eternal this weekend. Excited to watch One Championship this weekend. I'm excited for the UFC card. It's just going to be a dope weekend for fighting. And it's going to be just, a standout, I reckon. I'm excited. It's a big weekend of fights.
I gotta watch it, you never know what might stop you. Here I am.